All right, moving over to the welterweight division now. We got Phil Rowe coming in at plus 175 going up against Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani, who comes in at minus 205. Now, starting off on the Phil Rowe side of things, he is coming off of a decision loss against Seok-Hyun Ko, and that obviously did not allow Rowe to build upon the momentum that he had coming out of the Ange Losa fight. He is now 1-3 in his last 4 fights, 2-3 in his last 5 with that knockout victory over Nico Price to kick off that 5-fight run. But we are seeing where he struggles and where fighters can still take advantage of him, and that is often with the grappling game. Getting that top position, keeping him on his back, either finding that submission or keeping him there where he doesn't really have many options to work back to his feet. We saw Neil Magny pretty much outwork him. We saw Jake Matthews have a competitive matchup, but really in that third round start to pull away with his grappling. We saw Ange Losa control most of those first 2 rounds with his grappling, but end up gassing out, and Rowe was able to rely on his own cardio advantage and then pull off that barrage of shots to get the TKO in the third round. But then we saw the Seok-Hyun Ko fight where Rowe had no answer for the takedowns and top pressure of Ko. I think Ko mustered up almost 13 minutes of control time, about 4 minutes in each round, keeping Rowe on his back and not allowing Rowe to have any success of his own. Rowe is a guy who does his best when he can get his range, utilize his length and reach. He's 6'3" with an 80-inch reach at welterweight, which often means he's going to be the longer and taller fighter, but he hasn't been the best in terms of implementing that range against most of his opposition. He feels or he looks uncomfortable when he's constantly being pushed back or when he's constantly being wrestled, and he often has to lean on his cardio to hope that his opponent will gas themselves out trying to work for a finish, and that's where we saw the Ange Losa result play out the way that it did because Rowe had a little bit more left in the gas tank. All in all, I just don't think he ever reached his potential. He's 35 years old, so he's obviously up there in age. It's not going to get any easier for him, especially with the way the UFC seems to be matching him up. And they are matching him up with a very tough fighter making his UFC debut here in Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani. Now, Lebosnoyani is on a 4-fight winning streak, the most important victory of his career coming in his last fight against Jack Congdon, where he was able to get the knockout win, I believe 60-something seconds into that matchup. Very quick knockout. It was a beautiful head kick, right hook combination that put Congdon out in 68 seconds it was, and that earned him a contract right away. This California native is a black belt in BJJ, but we are seeing him be more comfortable in the striking range, especially with how crafty and slick he's been able to be with his kicking game. But earlier in his career, we saw him be a little bit more desperate with his takedowns, trying to implement that BJJ heavy game, and it's worked out with against a lot of opponents. The only one that he really seemed to struggle with was Jacoby Jones, who stopped the takedowns, kept the fight standing, and then really start to wear down a dwindling Lebosnoyani. But since then, we've seen some great work from JP. I like to call him JPL. Great work in terms of finishing his next 3 out of his 4 opponents, showcasing great cardio, a good gas tank as well. And he really benefits from having a solid, close-knit team, which includes even former UFC fighter Bruno Souza. And they're doing a great job in terms of morphing this guy into being the best version of himself. And he's only 27 years old still, right? He's very talented in the grappling game, and now if he's continuing to apply that to his striking game so that he can get to his grappling a little bit easier, he's going to be even more difficult to deal with in the UFC. Now, in my opinion, there's a good reason he's a minus 205 favorite. It is constantly where I, break down fights, even this year. I think it was the Alex Morono and Daniil Donchenko fight. I usually am apprehensive about some fighters that come into the UFC, either on winning streaks or they're undefeated at chalk against UFC veterans who end up finding themselves as underdogs, just as Phil Rowe does here. But there are certain matchups where I feel like stylistically, the chalk is justified. And I feel like this is one of those situations where the chalk is justified. I think we'll see JPL smother Rowe in terms of not allowing Rowe to get comfortable at range. I know that Rowe is going to have a 4-inch height and an 8-inch reach advantage. Obviously, that will be detrimental for a lot of fighters, but I think Lebosnoyani will do a good enough job in terms of crowding the space, working to his takedowns, and then utilizing his superior BJJ game to try to get the best of Rowe. I ultimately think JPL gets a dub in his UFC debut, and I think it comes by submission.